Hi, Mom. So we begin this second phase by bringing our awareness to what information we get from our receiver when we gaze upon them. So as I begin, the opening is an opportunity for me to just take in the bigger picture. And so I'm paying attention to whatever happens to pop up for me, and I try to do my best to keep the big pictures, so the whole body in perspective. I look for asymmetries, areas of the body which are different from one side to the other. And I also look for, I notice her breathing. I notice the way that her head is set up relative to her torso, her hips, and her legs. And Jolene is pretty lined up, nice and straight. Notice her hips are a little off to one side, but the legs seem to be reflecting the shoulders and the head. So I just take that in and trust that it's going to get processed in whatever way it needs to be. And then I begin by offering my first touch as an invitation. So I press my palms with a fullness of touch on the soles of the feet. I nest my hands, and then I pour the firmness of my body weight through the softness of my hands. And I feel, just doing that there is a very palpable connection between me and my receiver, just now. Sometimes you have to close your eyes to see more. Shifting my weight, I'm going to begin palming on the soles of the feet to create a rhythm. Here's a great opportunity to practice taking your time if that's something that you would like to work with. I'm going to continue emphasizing keeping a fullness in my touch, so I use my whole palm. The more contact, the better. I take a hold of the leg on my right side, lift the leg up, supporting at the heel. I'm going to walk in at my knees and come into the archer's position so that I can bring Jolene's knee and leg into an open position. I give her plenty of space. I rock a little bit, make an adjustment, or at least move, because often discomfort comes from stagnation. I'm going to rest the leg in a tree position, like our yoga practice. Sometimes I bring this straight leg closer. And then keeping my left hand at the inner heel, this is the mothering hand, I nest there. I bring my right hand just inside the shin bone, and I come into the Japanese seat. Knees wide, toes tucked. Back straight, arms straight. My right hand is palming along the inner shin on the calf muscle. My left hand remains the mothering hand, nested on the inner heel. And I work down the shin towards the ankle and back up. Is that okay, Jolene? I can feel that for her this is plenty of body weight. If I wanted to add more, I would just take my knees back and offer more. From here, I adjust my position, centered in line with the knee. I use both hands to press on the femur and tibia bone at the same time, so that I move both bones down evenly and I watch the opposite hip. So if I use even pressure in both hands, it puts no strain or lateral pressure on the knee. So you want to be very clear in applying pressure evenly through both hands. And I sink. I'll shift into a butterfly grip here so that we use the palms joined at the thumbs. And we'll start at mid-thigh. I make a nest, and then I start to sink. This is where my mala bead hangs. I wouldn't want to go any further. If I wanted to add body weight, what would I do? Move my legs back. When I finish, I press down and towards the receiver's pelvis to come up. And then I'll go a little bit closer towards the hip, make the nest, and sink. I'm giving us plenty of time to sink. This is a great static technique to really be patient. And her body slowly accepts, and invites me to go deeper. Again, I press towards her pelvis to come out. And then I can go towards the knee as well. I want to be mindful that 3 to 4 inches within the 3 to 4 inches away from the knee, we can refer to as the red zone. It's sensitive, so you want to be gentle and sensitive in how you apply your body weight. So I'm going slower here and listening. From here, we're going to take the knee up, and then I come into an archer's position. I'm just going to notice how freely her hip moves here as I rock her from the knee. And then keeping my left hand on the knee here, I'm going to take my right hand, press it along the IT band. I'm going to lock my right arm and then lean into my right hand. So that's this hand here. And then my left hand is supporting the knee. It's basically staying straight and fixed so that when I lean into my right hand, there is a fixed point against which I'm applying pressure. And so the pressure translates into the thigh. You okay? Yeah, getting a little ahead of myself. I'm using my knee and inner leg to support my upper arm. Don't fall asleep on me, Marie. So we get the IT band working there, and you can work that a little bit more. Transitioning from there, we work into this area here, which is getting closer to the hip flexor muscles. What I'm going to do is nest my hand where the femur meets the hip, and right underneath the ASIS or the hip bone here, the hip point that is most easy to reference. I nest just inside of it and shorten the muscles slightly by bringing the knee towards me. And then I can lean a lot of body weight into that point as I stretch the thigh away from me and over the midline. So I'm really fixing with my right hand and applying a little bit of weight into my left hand to take the knee across the midline and stretch. So I do that a couple of times. Again, I nest, shorten the muscle, and as I start to sink, I keep the hip fixed as I stretch the knee away. Good. Take a moment to let her integrate. And then I switch my stance so that I'm kneeling on my right foot, cross the leg over my left leg. Then here we have a lever, similar to what we did in the first phase. What I'm going to do is prepare for a twist. So I want to make sure there's a pillow on the side of her head before I roll her over into side lying position. I start with a twist, come through the dancer. This is the Russian dancer. It's the way we refer to this transition. And then I reach for her far arm with my left hand. She's trying to help me. She doesn't need to. And then I'm going to support her in coming into side lying position. I rest the hand in a comfortable place here. And I want to see that more or less her shoulder is stacked above the bottom shoulder and that her hips are stacked as well. So this is a nice comfortable position where I can just place my hands on her and give her a little support, make her feel safe. I'm going to cradle her bent leg with my left arm. Here, I catch her shin with my forearm. A lot of contact, a lot of support. She feels it and she can relax into it. Using that kind of support, I bring my knees together underneath her thigh, and I rest her thigh on top of my lap. I get in a little bit closer so that I remove the space between her leg and my torso. And then here, I'm going to work on the outer thigh once again using the forearm. So I use the meaty part of the forearm here rather than the bone by turning my palm face down. And I just slowly sink. It's a great opportunity to watch the receiver's breath and for me to practice being comfortable in my own body. The more time you take in these static positions, in these static holds, the more you cultivate a depth of listening, the more you put your audience to sleep. So I'm moving to different points. Again, the red zone within 3 inches of the knee is an area where I want to be sensitive of how much body weight to apply. And then we're going to work on the piriformis muscle and the glute. So I'm simply going to take her for a ride towards side lying 2 position. So I move my knees wider away from her, and then her hip starts to turn more towards prone position, towards the position on her belly. And in that way, it exposes more of her back, butt, piriformis area. So here I use the soft part of my elbow just inside the elbow bone and the elbow point, this flat surface here. I make a connection underneath her sacral bone and between her femur and her sacrum. There are a number of strong muscles that govern the hip flexors. So we're going to sink into those points by shifting our weight towards the elbow. I actually shift my weight substantially off of my own center, sideways, so that I can get my weight on top of the elbow. And I even draw energy slightly with my elbow towards my own midline so that my upper arm creates a perpendicular angle from where I'm penetrating. Does that make sense? So it looks like I'm not stacked because my shoulder went too far that way, but actually if I want to touch a point that's facing that way, I need to attack it from that angle. So I'm the predator again. So there are some points that you can work, and you can actually stay there for quite some time. Another great place to practice these static techniques where you really sink and you stay there for a few breaths. Notice that my right hand is very relaxed. We call this the ladyboy hand. I like to call it the ladyboy hand. Some have said swan hand. It's more PC. Not fun. To come out, I'm going to fold the shin in towards my belly here. And then we won't really see this on camera very well. But yeah. We're going to bring the receiver into flexion in their back by using our thighs to support their shin. And I use my hands to support me on the floor and the other arm to support her back. And then when I feel complete, I'm going to release this arm and let her just roll towards her back. And I can then take her leg into extension and work on the other side. When we finish both sides, we'll take a moment at the end of the sequence to come back to our partner's feet and just ground ourselves. This is a great time for you to cultivate a sense of body comfortable, a sense of feeling good in yourself, and just really coming back to your own center, so that if for whatever reason you may have compromised the way you feel so that you could learn a technique, that you can come back to this place of simplicity and just offer your body weight in a very consensual way with your own body. And in that way you can really ground yourself at the end of your sequence. As I feel complete, I'm just going to step back a little bit, release any residual energy, disconnect, and then seal the offering by offering gratitude to my teacher, my receiver. Thank you, Jolene.